12.1 Inverse variation. Your objective, you're going to solve inverse variations and compare direct and inverse variations. Let's take a look at what inverse variations look like today. First of all, inverse variation is where x and y multiply together in order to make what is called a constant of variation. Now, in order to get y alone, of course, you would get rid of x by dividing it to both sides, and that is what it looks like when y is alone. This is the format of equation that is expected when it comes to inverse variation. Constant of variation, please don't get me started. I understand constant starts with a C, and of course, you know, the dead white mathematicians decided, hey, K sounds like a good idea. So don't even give me any problems when it comes to, well, it starts with C. It should be a C. Well, they chose K, so live with it. Anyway, I want to give you a little heads up on direct variations, so you might as well write this out so you know what the difference is right now. Direct variation is going back to linears, where y equals mx plus b, but there's a catch. When it comes to direct variation, there can be no adding or subtracting number. And then the mathematicians of old said, no, we can't have an equation that is only part of a linear. We've got to create a whole new one. So they decided on y equals, hey, a constant k times x. So y equals mx plus b does not get confused with y equals kx, which is direct variation. So understand, the inverse and direct, they look a lot alike, but they are different. K is multiplying to x when y is alone for direct variation, which you have learned in the past. Inverse variation is where k is dividing by x when y is alone. So kind of confusing, but you have to keep them straight. All right, example 1. Suppose y varies inversely, underline varies inversely, with x and y equals 7 when x equals 5. Write an equation for the inverse of variation. There's only 2 simple steps to this procedure. First, use x times y equals k, the constant. So, sub in numbers. What is x? It is 5. What is y? It is 7 equals k. 5 times 7 is 35. Congratulations, you just found your k. Step 2. Now you're going to use it inverse variation equation where y is alone. Y equals k over x. Now in this instance, sub in k only. In order to keep this an actual equation, you need the x and y variables in order to have options as to which coordinates that you want on a graph. So you do not sub anything in for x or y, only k gets subbed in with 35. So that is y equals 35 over x. And there it is, all done. All right, go ahead and try this next one and see how you do. All right, if you did this one correctly, step 1, take x times y equals k, which is 2 times 9 equals k, 18 equals k, sub 18 in, y equals 18 over x. And done. All right, it says here, suppose y varies inversely with x and a point on the graph of the equation. They tried to trick you. They didn't write out, say, here is x, here is y. They gave it to you in coordinate form. But you should know that coordinates are in x and y format. So therefore, you have your x and you have your y. So take 8 times 9 equals k. 8 times 9 is 72 equals k. Y equals 72 over x. And there's your inverse variation equation. All right, let's try finding a missing coordinate. It says the points 3, 8 and 2, y are 2 points on a graph of an inverse variation. Find the missing value. So this is actually quite easy. Still 2 steps. Step 1. Label coordinates just to keep them organized. X sub 1, y sub 1. And the other set should be x sub 2, y sub 2. All right, I don't care which ones are the 1s or the 2s. So let's go with x sub 1, y sub 1 as one set, x sub 2, y sub 2 as your other set. And now the formula to put them in. Step 2, you will take x sub 1 times y sub 1, tricked you there, you guys probably thought it was x sub 2, equals x sub 2 times y sub 2. Now sub in your numbers and solve. So we have x sub 1 is 3 times y sub 1, which is 8, equals x sub 2, which is 2, and y sub 2, which is y. Then from there, 3 times 8, which is 24, equals 2y, and then divide by 2. 24 divided 2 is 12y equals 12. And it did not say anything about writing an equation. All it said was find the missing value. That's it. And you're done. All right, let's see if you can do that again. Go ahead and try A and B on your own. All right, if you did these correctly, x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. A lot of you won't even need to label your coordinates. I just did that so you do not multiply the wrong things together. So for here, we have 3 times y equals 5 times 9, and 3y equals 45. Divide by 3 to both sides, and you get y equals 15. And then for over here, you have 75 times 0.2 equals 3 times x. 75 times 0.2, which is 15, equals 3x. Divide by 3 to both sides, and you get x equals 5. All right, go ahead and try one more for good measure. All right, if you did this one correctly, you'd have 5 times 6 equals 3 times y. 5 times 6 is 30 equals 3y. Divide by 3 to both sides, and you get 10 equals y. All right, I'm pretty sure you guys thought those were really easy. And then we get to the word problem, and all of you are like, oh, this is going to be so hard. No, not really. So it says here, the weight needed to balance a lever, which is like a teeter-totter, varies inversely with the distance from the fulcrum, which is the middle, to the weight. Where should Julio, who weighs 150 pounds, sit to balance the lever? So, ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. Weight varies inversely with distance. So how do I show that? Well, how were you doing it before? You were doing x times y equals the constant of variation. So we're going to still do that. We're still going to do x times y, which is this time distance and weight. So take weight times your distance equals weight times your distance. We're going to do the exact same thing that you just were doing with coordinates. So what is our first weight here? 120. What is our first distance? 6. So take 120 times 6 on one side. And on the other side, you have 150 and x. So 150 times x. And go ahead and do your multiplication, which comes out to 720 equals 150x. And then from there, get x alone by dividing 150 to both sides. Now, if you have the correct answer, you should come out with 4.8 feet equals x. And that's it. All right, go ahead and try A and B and see if you can get them right. All right, since there's no picture, some of you may have been perplexed, but if you read it, you have a weight and a distance. So let's take 100 times 4 equals the other weight and distance. How far from the fulcrum should a 75-pound weight be placed to balance the lever? Well, 75 pounds, and x is our distance. So from there, 100 times 4 is 400 equals 75x. Divide by 75 to both sides. And it should be placed 5.3 repeating away from the middle. All right, for the next one, an 80-pound weight is placed 9 feet from the fulcrum, so 80 times 9 equals, what weight should you put 6 feet from the fulcrum to balance the lever? So 6x. And then 80 times 9, or 6y, I don't care what letter you use. 720 equals 6x. Divide by 6 to both sides. In order to balance the lever, it should be 120 pounds equals x. All right, let's see how you do on this next one. All right, if you did this correctly, you have weight of 120, 5 feet away, so 120 times 5 equals 80 pounds on the other side, times x, of course, for the distance. 120 times 5, which comes out to 600, equals 80x. Divide by 80 to both sides. And you should end up with 7.5 equals x for your final answer. All right, so now we are going to do direct and inverse variation and knowing which type of graph table would be direct and which one would be inverse. Now, direct variation, you're going to notice it's a linear line. And what creates this linear line? Y equals k times x. So a constant always multiplying to your x. Now over here, inverse variation is where you take a constant of variation and divide by your x to get your y. So we're going to go ahead and utilize these patterns in the next example. So right here, it says, do the data in each table represent direct variation or is it an inverse variation? It's actually really easy to tell using two steps. First, step one is a test. Now a test you can do for either direct or inverse, but you should know both tests. So let's start off with inverse. Inverse is where you take x multiplied to y. So the inverse test is taking x times y, which what you're looking for is a constant number to come out. Now direct variation, what you're looking for is a constant number to come out of y divide x. So right here, I want you to try taking x times y throughout the whole table. Now when you do that, 2 times 5 is 10, 4 times 10 is 400 or 40. So you're going to notice right there, this one was 10, this one was 40. That's not constant. So it can't be an inverse. Already you have proven it's not inverse. But if we bring up our calculator here and try dividing the y's by the x's, so we got 5 divide 2. That's 2.5, 10 divide 4, which is, whoops, I forgot to clear out my calculator, 10 divide 4, which is 2.5, and then 25 divide 10, which is 2.5. So clearly there is a constant number when we kept taking our y numbers and dividing by the x numbers. So this is a direct variation. Now, you're not done. Not only do you have to decide if it's inverse or direct, then you have to write an equation to model the data. Now, some of you are like, no, writing an equation, no. No, it's not that bad. For the equations, it's very simple. For inverse, you will just take y equals the number that you get, divide x. Now, for direct, you are going to take y equals the number you get multiplied to x. So just take the constant number you get and put it where the number is. So for this one, it's a direct, so where does the number go that we kept getting? 2.5 should go right here. So y equals 2.5x. And done. All right, for the next one, I already know some of you are writing down inverse, but you should at least test it and make sure. So do 5 times 20, which is 100, 10 times 10, which is 100, 25 times 4, which is 100. So yes, there is a constant number when multiplying x to y. So therefore, write inverse. And the equation, you kept getting 100, right? So y equals the constant of variation, which is 100, divide x. And there are your answers. All right, let's see if you guys can get 2 on your own. Go ahead and give it a try. All right, if you did these correctly, first I'm going to try the inverse test first. 3 times 12 is 36. 6 times 6 is 36. 9 times 4 is 36. So this is an inverse. And 36 was the magic number, so y equals 36 over x. Now over here, I'll do the direct test, which is 12 divide 3, which is 4, 20 divide 5, which is 4, 32 divide 8, which is 4. So therefore, it's a direct. And we're going to do y equals 4 times x. All right, go ahead and give these two a try and see if you get them right. All right, if you have them correct, first, the inverse test. 3 times 10 is 30, 5 times 6 is 30, 10 times 3 is 30. So therefore, that is an inverse. The constant of variation is 30, so replace k with 30. And done. And over here, I'm going to try the direct, of course. So 3 divide 2 is 1.5, 6 divide 4 is 1.5, 12 divide 8 is 1.5. So this is a direct variation. And the constant of variation we kept getting is 1.5. So y equals 1.5 times x is the equation. All right, let's see how you guys do on our next example then. Now this one, it says explain whether each situation represents a direct variation or an inverse variation. So no table, no graph, you have to just read the sentence and know if it's a direct or an inverse based on the wording. So let me take you through what that looks like. The cost of $20 worth of gasoline is split among several people. Now, the word split is the clue here. So let me go through what that means. Now, split among several people, you don't know how many people. So you're just going to do a test to see, well, what's it cost if only this many people share the gas price. So 20 is the constant. That's not changing. Now, if one person were to pay for all $20, that means 1 is 20. But if 2 people, of course, kick in for gas, that is $10 each person. If 3 people kick in for gas, that's $6.66 for each person. Now, if you take a look here, what is the pattern? Well, 1 times 20 is 20. 2 times 10 is 20. 3 times 6.66 repeating, rounded, is 20. So therefore, this is an inverse relationship. And we can prove it by looking at the data here. But the word split, I'm going to tell you right now, means division. So whenever you take a constant divided by a number or among several whatever, that means it's an inverse automatically. So it's not always that easy to tell, but you have to at least test it out with numbers. The table is not necessary if you can read something and know, but some of you may need to draw out a table to know it. It says in the next one, you buy several markers for 70 cents each. Well, let's see what that looks like. 1 marker is 70 cents. 2 markers is $1.40. 3 markers is $2.10. So what is the pattern here? Well, if you notice, you take your x value and you multiply it by 70 cents, you get, of course, your y. So 2 times 0.70 is 140. 3 times 0.70 is 210. Now, multiplying by 0.70, what does that sound like? Well, I hope you said direct. Or if you look straight down here, it keeps adding by 70 cents. So therefore, it's got to be a direct variation. All right, let's see if you guys can try 2 on your own. All right, now this one was a little bit trickier for B, but let's take a look at A. You are in a discount store. All sweaters are on sale for $15 each. Is it direct or is it inverse? Well, if you buy 1 sweater, it's 15 bucks. If you buy 2 sweaters, that's 30 bucks. And if you buy 3 sweaters, it's 45 bucks. It keeps adding by a constant rate. So therefore, that is a direct variation. Now, the next one was a little harder for some of you to tell. You walk 5 miles each day. There's your constant. Your speed and time vary from day to day. Now, how does speed and time work? Well, speed times time equals your distance. So you don't know your speed, that would be your x, times you don't know your time, that's y, equals, you do know your distance is 5. So what type of format does this take on? That's an inverse. So that one was a little harder. But go ahead and try the last one and see if you can get these without any help. All right, if you understood A, it says you buy several souvenirs for $10 each. Again, that is a constant rate of addition, so that's direct. And in the next one, it says the cost of a $25 birthday present is split among several friends. So if a bunch of friends go ahead and split the cost, that means it's inverse because it will vary based on how many people kick in for the birthday gift.